What we're going to talk about is the fact that all the Sky starters, I believe, came out of this game, except one that needed a stat padding double-double. I kid you not. I mean, what are we doing in Chicago? Really? I mean, what are you doing? At what point do you not realize you're not being a serious, actual professional team? They left Angel Reese in last night so she could get a double-double after the other starters, after Indiana done.
There are losses, and then there are losses that create a conversation bigger than the scoreboard itself. When the final numbers settled, and the Indiana Fever walked away with a dominant 181 victory over the Chicago Sky, the spotlight should have belonged entirely to Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark delivered another performance that reinforced why she remains the center of gravity in women's basketball. Every possession seemed to flow through Caitlin Clark's vision, pace, and ability to control the game. But instead of discussing only Caitlin Clark's brilliance, much of the post-game discussion shifted toward Angel Reese. The reason wasn't simply that Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky lost. Teams lose all the time. The reason was what happened after the outcome had already been decided. As Indiana Fever fans celebrated another statement victory and Caitlin Clark received praise from a crowd that wasn't even her home audience, Angel Reese became the center of a completely different debate. Questions started flying across social media. Critics weren't talking about winning plays. They weren't talking about defensive adjustments. They weren't talking about championship habits. They were talking about statistics. The argument exploded almost immediately. Did Angel Reese remain on the floor to chase another double-double? Did the Chicago Sky prioritize a personal milestone over the reality of a game that had already been decided? And what does that say about where the franchise stands compared to Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever? That is where this story becomes much bigger than one box score. Because every time Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese share the same stage, the conversation extends far beyond basketball. It becomes a referendum on stardom, expectations, narratives, and the future direction of the WNBA itself.
Wow, you've literally got Caitlin Clark getting a standing ovation, bringing down the house in Chicago. I mean,
the third 30-point game of the season, and an enemy territory gets this kind of salute as she exits the game. Is this enemy territory?
I mean, seriously, that was in enemy.
What made this game particularly damaging for Chicago was how quickly momentum shifted toward Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Early on, there was hope that Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky could keep the contest competitive. But once Indiana established control, Caitlin Clark began doing what great franchise players do. She dictated pace. She created opportunities. She elevated the players around her. The scoreboard reflected that difference. While Angel Reese struggled to become a dominant offensive factor, Caitlin Clark was orchestrating the game from start to finish. Every Fever run seemed connected to Caitlin Clark's ability to stretch defenses and force impossible decisions. Then came the moment that intensified everything. As Caitlin Clark exited the game, she reportedly received a massive reaction from the crowd. Not in Indianapolis, not in a Fever arena. In Chicago, that image mattered. For Angel Reese, whose brand and popularity have been major talking points throughout her professional career, seeing the opposing superstar receive that level of appreciation in Chicago only amplified the contrast. The Indiana Fever looked organized. The Indiana Fever looked confident. Most importantly, the Indiana Fever looked like a team moving forward. Meanwhile, Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky found themselves facing questions about identity. Were they building a contender? Were they developing winning habits? Or were they becoming trapped in individual narratives while Caitlin Clark and Indiana focused on victories? The discussion became even louder because the game wasn't close. Had this been a one-possession battle, nobody would have cared about individual statistics late in the fourth quarter. Instead, the outcome was effectively decided. That reality changed how every late-game possession was viewed. And once fans started focusing on Angel Reese remaining on the court while other starters sat, the conversation shifted away from basketball strategy and toward perception. Perception can be brutal, especially when you're being compared directly to Caitlin Clark.
Right here, worst part is both teams subbed off their starters with 4 minutes to go, but Angel Reese stayed out there to get double-doubles. The most fraudulent record breaker ever. I mean, nah, your home crowd cheering for your biggest rival while you're down 27 is insane. They got clowned in their own building. And I mean, seriously, I'm going to tell you what's hilarious.
The fascinating part of this rivalry is that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese represent two completely different basketball journeys. Caitlin Clark entered professional basketball carrying historic expectations. Every arena became a showcase. Every game became a national event. Every performance was analyzed from every possible angle. Yet Caitlin Clark's greatest strength may be her ability to keep returning the conversation to winning. When Caitlin Clark posts elite numbers during a victory, the statistics feel connected to the result. That connection matters. For Angel Reese, the challenge is different. Angel Reese has built a reputation around rebounding, energy, toughness, and relentless competitiveness. Those traits helped make Angel Reese one of the most recognizable names in women's basketball. But there is a danger when individual achievements begin overshadowing team success. Fair or unfair, that is the criticism Angel Reese faced after this game. Critics argued that the pursuit of another double-double became more important than accepting the reality of the score. Supporters of Angel Reese naturally pushed back. They argued that players should compete until the final whistle. They argued that effort should never be criticized. Both perspectives exist, but what cannot be ignored is the perception gap. When Caitlin Clark leaves the floor early because the game is already secure, fans see dominance. When Angel Reese remains on the floor during a blowout loss, critics see desperation. Whether that interpretation is accurate or not becomes almost irrelevant once public opinion takes hold. History shows that star athletes are judged differently. The greatest players are rarely evaluated only by numbers. They are evaluated by context. And in this particular game, the context favored Caitlin Clark from beginning to end.
Situation at the end where she was stat padding and staying in the game and calling for the ball. Remember during her double-double streak? That happened 3 or 4 times during that streak, or her streak, it would have been a wrap. She'd have never broke any records, blah, blah, blah. There were times when she should not have been in the game and she was calling for the ball. That's why the New York Liberty quadruple teamed her. They had it.
The biggest consequence of this moment may not be about Angel Reese's statistics at all. It may be about perceptions surrounding two franchises moving in opposite directions. The Indiana Fever increasingly look like a team that understands exactly who they are. Caitlin Clark serves as the centerpiece. The roster complements her strengths. The organization appears committed to maximizing her impact. That creates stability. Stability attracts attention. Stability attracts sponsors. Stability attracts fans. For Chicago, the questions are becoming harder to ignore. How does Angel Reese fit into the long-term vision? How does Chicago build an offense capable of competing with elite teams? How does the organization prevent every loss from becoming a national debate? These questions grow louder after games like this. The WNBA thrives when rivalries generate attention, and Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese remains one of the biggest rivalries in the sport. But rivalries only stay competitive when both sides continue progressing. Right now, many observers believe Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever are accelerating faster. That doesn't mean Angel Reese cannot respond. Great athletes have always used criticism as fuel. The challenge for Angel Reese is transforming the conversation. Instead of talking about double-doubles, instead of talking about stat padding, instead of talking about controversy, the conversation needs to return to winning. Because winning changes everything. And until that happens, every matchup involving Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese will continue producing the same comparison. One side celebrating victories, the other side trying to silence critics.